Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei teleported in Justice League and Harem Part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Said while loading up a Queen sighed while looking at her watch, but saw no sign of Joker. Something isn't right. Joker should have been here by now. Queen said before Jack replied. Hey, Joker said he's coming, and the guys kept his word so far since we swapped out the real firework for the boss's Joker fear bomb. Now we wait to get out of town before the fake blows up, and Gotham is his while we enjoy our new city as well. Jack said while Ten chuckled in response, coming out of the truck. Jack, right. Once Joker shows up, then it'll be time for our new turf, which he promised us. Ten said, glad to be out of Cadmus but excited to work with Joker, until a bullet flew in the air and took out the lights, causing them to be prepared for anyone trying to sneak up on them, until a voice spoke to them. So you're Joker's new gang doing his dirty work for him? Jason Todd, aka Red Hood, said before reading his guns while the emergency power kicked on to reveal him to the Royal Flush Gang. Red Hood. King shouted, instantly raising his staff at the vigilante. You got a death wish, buddy. The Royal Flush Gang was filled in on all of Joker's main enemies in Gotham, which included the Bat family and Red Hood, meaning they knew what the first Robin was capable of, while Red Hood smirked under his helmet, his guns leveled at the gang members. I could say the same about you. Working with Joker. That never ends well. Red Hood said before the Queen stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. We don't take kindly to threats, Hood. Also, you're outnumbered. Jason chuckled darkly while reading his guns. Outnumbered, sure. Outgunned. We'll see. Without another word, Red Hood lunged forward, his guns blazing. The Royal Flush Gang scattered, firing back. The dim emergency lights flickered as bullets whizzed through the air. Jason dodged and weaved, taking down one gang member after another with precision shots. However, the bullets weren't doing much to Jack, since his elastic body deflected them, while Ten powered through the bullets with his invulnerability. Queen, on the other hand, was shocked when she wasn't able to control said bullets, before seeing that they were special plastic bullets that still hurt like regular ones. King, on the other hand, was annoyed by how Red Hood was making them look, so he used his staff to fire a round of fireballs at Red Hood, causing Red Hood to stay away from King, before Ten charged through the flames and proceeded to tackle Red Hood through the warehouse until Red Hood put a sticky bomb on Ten's head, causing him to freak out from it until it blew up, and granted it didn't kill him, but it definitely knocked him out. However, Red Hood wasn't expecting a sucker punch from Jack, who then wrapped around Jason and then began squeezing him like a boa constrictor does its prey. King and Queen walked towards him with a smirk on their faces, ready to punch him into the ground, 6 feet deep, that is, until the lights were turned off, shocking the hero and villains, until King ignited a small flame. Who's there and where are you? King asked, slightly afraid of the dark around him, since he'd never been a big fan of dark places, even when he was a kid before Cadmus took him to their Reformation Center, until Joker broke them out. All of the Royal Flush Gang may have been taken from their families, but they didn't have good lives. King was the second oldest since he was around 12 at the time his powers awakened, and it was the worst day of his life. Grant Emerson discovered his pyrokinetic abilities at a young age when he was helping his parents at home after his old man got back from a business trip. However, the problem was that during a gas explosion, the explosion killed both Grant's parents but not him, due to him gaining the ability to control and create fire. Sadly, Grant had no other relatives, which led to Cadmus, where his abilities were harnessed and trained for combat purposes. Grant was often frustrated by his inability to control his temper and his powers, since he hated how they punished him when he tried to escape by blasting him with pressurized water that sniffed him out in an instant. Still, the worst part was when Grant was placed in that dark room where he slept and shivered from the cold despite his powers due to him being a wet match. Eventually, the others came, and Grant realized he wasn't the only one who had a life messed up due to their powers. Layla Stone, also known as Queen, lived with her parents in a modest home. During a violent storm, a massive lightning strike caused their house to collapse, trapping her family under debris. In a desperate attempt to save them, Layla's latent metal manipulation powers emerged, but she couldn't control them. The twisting metal crushed her parents while sparing her. Devastated and alone, she was discovered by Project Cadmus and taken away for training. As Queen, she uses her powers to manipulate metal with precision, but the memory of her parents' death haunts her. Cameron Hicks, aka Jack, was on a family road trip when their car skidded off a bridge into a river. As the car sank, his parents struggled to save him. In the panic, Cameron's body instinctively stretched, allowing him to escape through a narrow gap. Unfortunately, his parents drowned before they could be rescued by the rescue team, leaving Cameron orphaned. However, when he was taken in by Project Cadmus, who recognized his potential, he realized that the rescue team let his parents die so they could obtain Cameron for their organization. And last on the Royal Flush Gang was Marco Sanchez, aka 10. Marcos lived in a rough neighborhood with his parents. One evening, a gang-related shootout erupted near their home, something about a gang trying to defend their turf and people. In the chaos, Marcos got shot, but his super durability activated as he shielded his parents from the gunfire. After the fight, Marcos emerged unscathed. His parents were fatally wounded but still alive, but a few years later, another shootout from another gang took away his folks. However, it wasn't just another gang, it was Cadmus coming in to claim the Iron Man and bring him to Cadmus. Marcos put up a fight, but it only resulted in him losing his family and getting caught. All in all, the four of them had a rough life ever since their powers woke up and Cadmus took them away to turn them into living weapons, but when Joker took them away from the hellhole in the desert, then they would do anything to fight for the man who saved them. King yelled before he felt a left hook send him flying into the truck, making Queen use the metal around her to form a sword, trying to strike her assailant until a fist shattered not just her sword but also her nose, sending her into a wall. Jack was freaking out since he wasn't sure who was attacking them before he was feeling cold all of a sudden, which made him slowly turn around to see a pair of blue eyes. Why? Jack stuttered before being frozen solid by a blast of cold air. The assailant then looked at Red Hood, who was groaning and about to wake up to see who helped him until he was shot by a tranquilizer in his neck, causing Red Hood to collapse as the power began to come back on in the warehouse. Was that really necessary, Luthor? The woman asked as her appearance was then revealed to be a woman in her early adult years and had a white bodysuit with a boob window on the chest, along with short blonde hair and blue eyes. Oh, give it a rest. We needed to make sure that no one noticed us transporting 4 superhuman teenagers back to Cadmus. Luthor said before tossing a headband to his partner in crime. Put the mind-control headbands to get them under control before putting the cuffs on them. The woman scoffed at Lex before heading to the 4 and began to place the cuffs and headbands on their heads, which were created not only to contain deadly superhuman beings, but also to control the subjects without a struggle. The woman, her cold demeanor betraying a trace of sympathy, carefully placed the headbands on King, Queen, Jack and 10, ensuring they were securely fastened before locking the cuffs around their wrists. King groaned as he regained consciousness, feeling the metallic chill against his temples. What's happening? Lex Luthor stepped into the light, his figure imposing and authoritative. Welcome back to reality, King. Did you really think you could escape from Cadmus indefinitely? King's eyes widened in recognition and fear. No. We were free. Joker promised us freedom. Lex chuckled darkly. The Joker's promises are as reliable as his sanity, King. You were always destined to return to Cadmus since they owned you. Did you really think that you and your little friends could escape that easily? As the Royal Flush Gang began to come to their senses, the woman, Galadia, observed them with a mixture of pity and professionalism. Despite her reluctance to work with Luthor, she knew the mission required her cooperation. She finished securing the last headband and stepped back, allowing Luthor to inspect her work. Good, Luthor said, his gaze sweeping over the restrained gang members. Let's move them to the transport. We need to leave before anyone else arrives. The gang, disoriented and weakened by their restraints, was herded toward a waiting armored vehicle. Galadia walked beside them, her presence ensuring no resistance. Jason Todd, still unconscious, was left behind, a faint sign of their encounter etched in the bruises on his face. As they exited the warehouse, the hum of the city night surrounded them. Sirens blared in the distance, a reminder of the chaos that was Gotham. Luthor's men swiftly loaded the Royal Flush Gang into the vehicle, and within minutes, they were on their way back to Cadmus. Without a trace, a fight hadn't taken place in the warehouse to begin with. Elsewhere in Gotham, Issei Haidu patrolled the parade with Pamela and Supergirl, along with Ace checking the fireworks and seeing that the contents of the Joker fear bomb were destroyed thanks to the antidote that Pamela created with the sample she was given back at her lab. Relieved that the bomb was dealt with, Issei let his body relax a bit in his armor, but he was curious where the Joker really was until his earpiece, given to him by Supergirl, crackled to life as Barbara Gordon, Oracle, contacted him. Issei, we have a situation. Red Hood had engaged with the Royal Flush Gang just an hour ago, but he's not responding. I've tried calling him, but he isn't picking up. His last known location was an abandoned warehouse on the east side. Issei frowned, concern evident in his expression. Understood, Oracle. Isay said before informing Supergirl and Ace to keep watch over the parade with Pamela, before Pamela stopped him and grabbed his left arm. Please come back. I'm worried since Joker is still out there with Harley. Pamela said before Isay caressed her head as if comforting his lover, until Pamela laid her head into his armored hand. However, it still comforted and warmed her soul as she looked in between the visor and could see the eyes of the man who gave her a chance to prove herself, that she wasn't here to harm but help, despite the crimes that she'd committed to save and protect Mother Nature. Ace was surprised as she looked into the minds of her protector and Pamela and could tell that the villain seemed to be developing feelings for her big brother, which made her feel unsure about this possible romance between her big brother and the poisonous villain until Kara chuckled at the sight. "Come on, Ace, now that the threats have been dealt with, why don't we celebrate by getting some food? I see a nice corn on the cob with your name on it." Kara said that, knowing that warm food was a weakness for the girl. Before the girls left, Pamela and Issei headed to a bike rack and saw a motorcycle for two. The biker looked at Issei as if he wanted to pick a fight until Issei summoned a few $1,000s and handed it to the biker, which made him gasp before counting it and checking it. "Heh. Clever kid. All yours." The biker said as Issei took the bike and decided to tweak it to suit his style, so he had his tassels move and connect to the motorcycle and began to modify it to be a more tech-style bike. Issei then sat on it before asking Pamela to join him, which made her happy as she got on before Issei began to rev up his new bike as he sped through the darkened streets of Gotham, his mind racing with possibilities. Issei was honestly worried about Jason and knew he should have sent Kara to help Jason out instead of assisting them in locating the fake fireworks and destroying the chemical bomb. Pamela, on the other hand, was worried about Harley since the two were good friends and possibly lovers, but something didn't sit right with her since she pondered where Joker would really be during this chaos that he was creating, since he isn't the type to sit back and watch the carnage. Eventually, they arrived at the warehouse. Issei cautiously dismounted and approached the building. The door was ajar, the silence inside unsettling. He activated his infrared vision, scanning for any signs of life. Seeing a faint heat signature, he moved in, his hand on the hilt of his sword Ascalon in his storage portal. Pamela watched his back as he entered. Issei then found Red Hood lying on the ground, still out cold. Issei quickly checked for a pulse and sighed in relief when he found one. Red Hood is alive but unconscious. "Good work, Issei. Stay with him until he wakes up. We need to find out what happened," Oracle said while Issei nodded, kneeling beside Jason, and Pamela kept a vigilant eye on their surroundings. It wasn't long before Jason stirred, groaning as he pushed himself up. "Easy there, Hood," Pamela said, helping him sit up before asking him. "What happened here?" Jason rubbed his neck, wincing at the residual pain. "Don't know. I was doing fine after taking out the big guy until Jack began to strangle me and almost knocked me out. Lights went out and the next thing I knew, someone took out the other three. I was about to wake up when something hit my neck that took me out of the fight. That's all I can remember," Jason said before Issei patted the boy's head and nodded until handing his earpiece to him so Jason could fill Oracle in on the situation. He thanked Issei until Pamela took Issei to the side. Joker isn't the kind of guy to just sit back and watch from afar. He likes to be close to his plans to see them through, but where would he do it? And why take Harley with him? Pamela asked before Jason walked towards them. "I got a theory." Jason's voice was low but persistent, his eyes glinting with a mix of determination and anger. "Joker isn't just out to cause chaos. Also, I think this parade was just a distraction from his real plan. He always has a real plan and want to distract us. If he's taken Harley with him, it's personal since his side is her since she turned into a villain. Joker always hits places that cause the most chaos, so he's going to hit somewhere that means something to us, somewhere he can cause the most pain." Issei nodded, processing Jason's words until Drake appeared in detective attire before speaking to Issei. "Gotham has countless targets, but we need to think like him. Where would he go to make the biggest impact, both on the city and on Batman?" Pamela's brow furrowed as she thought it through. The Joker would want to make a statement. He'd target somewhere public where he could watch the city descend into chaos. But also somewhere that hits close to home for us. Jason's eyes narrowed. Wayne Tower. It's not just a symbol of Gotham's wealth and power, but also a personal blow to Bruce. The Joker would see it as the ultimate stage for his grand finale. Not to mention, Pamela added, it's close enough to the parade. He could hit two birds with one stone, causing maximum chaos and drawing out the rest of the Bat family. Issei's fists were clenched, and his brain finally put together the final pieces of the puzzle, since he realized the Joker didn't want to use the parade firework, but something else created by Wayne Enterprise. "We need to get Thirano." Just as they were about to move, Oracle's voice came through the earpiece. "Jason. I'm picking up increased activity around Wayne Tower. Security systems are being overridden as are. Looks like your hunch was right." "Understood, Oracle. We're on our way," Jason replied while Issei mounted the motorcycle again and Pamela climbed in behind him. Jason followed, riding his bike. As they sped through the city, the tension mounted. The streets were eerily quiet, the usual bustle of Gotham muted by the anticipation of the Joker's next move. Issei's mind raced with plans and contingencies since he refused to allow any of the innocent people to suffer from the clown. Still, Issei had no intention of letting the clown live since, from the many battles Brainiac put in Issei through his collection, Issei knew that the Joker was an irredeemable monster who didn't deserve to live, so Issei would do the world a favor and do what the heroes are too cowardly to do, especially Batman. Kill Joker and ensure that he is erased for good. Arriving at Wayne Tower, they found the area surprisingly quiet. Too quiet. Issei scanned the surroundings, noting the subtle signs of tampering with the security systems. The trio moved cautiously, entering the building through a side entrance, while Jason told Oracle to inform Kara and Ace and to make sure the parade went off without any problems. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The dim lighting and occasional flicker of the emergency lights added to the sense of foreboding. They split up, with Issei and Pamela heading to the main control room, while Jason checked the upper floors. In the control room, Issei quickly accessed the security feed, his fingers flying over the keyboard while using his tassels to hack and see the areas that couldn't be seen by the ones taken down. "Docker's here," Issei said before pointing to the video of the top floor. Pamela peered over his shoulder, her eyes widening. "That's a transmitter. He could broadcast his chaos to the entire city from up there." "But there's something else," Pamela said before using the cameras to zoom in until she gasped at the image. "The cloud seeder," Pamela said before backing into the wall as Issei calmed her down before Drake appeared. "Yep. We hacked into the scanners and internet to find out about the robbery of the cloud seeder. Once we put 2 and 2 together, we realized that Joker used a threat for the parade to get all police forces to cover said parade to avoid the real plan, which is to use the special formula that he made with Scarecrow inside of the cloud seeder." Drake said until Pamela continued his explanation. "And if it activates and succeeds, then the rain will cause all of Gotham to become trapped in a nightmare that'll tear them apart mentally until they begin to kill each other." "Not if we stop him first," Drake said grimly as they then made their way to the elevators, bypassing the security lockout with Oracle's help. As the elevator ascended, Drake turned to Pamela. "Stay close to Issei. We don't know what traps Joker might have set, though if anything, he's probably hoping Batman would show up." Pamela nodded, her resolve hardening, hoping to save her friend and her children. "I'm ready." The elevator doors opened to reveal a scene of controlled chaos. Joker stood in the center of the room, his trademark grin plastered across his face, but there was no sign of Harley at his side. Around Joker were various makeshift devices, each one more dangerous looking than the last. "Ah, my guests have arrived," Joker exclaimed, spreading his arms wide. "I was beginning to think you'd never show." Joker then groaned as he was disappointed by who showed up. "Really? No Batman, but some knockoff wannabe plant girl. No Bat Brat. Ugh, this was supposed to be my big moment. Where is Harley?" Pamela yelled before Joker looked at her. "Ah, yes. Well, Harley is my assistant since this formula is untested, and who better to be my little guinea pig than my jester?" Joker asked before revealing Harley was attached to a chair under the cloud seeder, but a tube was connected to her, so she'd get a dose as well. "Well, since Batman hasn't shown up, I guess I'll take my leave," Joker said before pulling out a device and pushing a button, causing the cloud seeder to activate and running out of the building. "Bye for now, though I wonder how you'll get me while you're busy with her," Joker yelled as he laughed while running away. "Joker? You coward." Pamela yelled before Jason kicked in the door and headed over to the trio. "Pamela and I will deal with the cloud seeder. You and Drake stop the Joker from escaping," Jason said, with Issei agreeing with the plan before the knight ran in Joker's direction and the cloud seeder began to fly up. Issei dashed through the corridors, his heart pounding with determination. He couldn't let Joker escape and execute his twisted plans. Drake's voice echoed in his mind, guiding his steps. "Keep going straight. He's heading for the roof. We can't let him get to a helicopter or another escape route." Issei's feet pounded against the concrete floor as he raced upwards, his enhanced speed and agility making him a blur. The sound of Joker's maniacal laughter echoed faintly, growing louder with each flight of stairs he ascended. Issei's grip on his sword, Ascalon, tightened, the blade gleaming with a righteous fury. Bursts of light and the occasional explosion from Pamela and Jason's battle with the goons protecting the cloud seeder illuminated the path ahead, casting eerie shadows along the walls. Issei could hear their voices, distant yet persistent, as they worked to turn off the deadly device. It began to take off into the air, but was then held back by Pamela's plants on her person. Reaching the roof, Issei burst through the door just in time to see Joker climbing into a helicopter. The rotors began to spin, lifting the aircraft slowly off the ground. Issei didn't hesitate. With a powerful leap, he launched himself into the air, grabbing hold of one of the helicopter's landing skids. The pilot freaked out a bit from the extra weight, but Joker was laughing while looking down at the knight. "Persistent, aren't you?" Joker sneered from the open side door, his eyes wild with amusement. He brandished a gun, aiming it directly at Issei. But you're too late. Bang. Ahahaha. Joker laughed before looking down to see that Issei's head was lowered a bit until he looked back up with his forehead with a small red bump as the bullet casing fell to the ground, causing Joker to be shocked by this until Issei's eyes ignited as he then took a deep breath and unleashed fire, causing Joker to jump back from the flames while the pilot was freaking out and trying not to crash the plane. However, that was in vain as the helicopter crashed into the rooftop, which made Joker growl as he slowly stood up from the wreckage. You ruined everything. It was supposed to be my ultimate plan and a last fight with Batman. I'm the only one who can kill him. Joker shouted while Issei grunted and pulled himself out of the wreckage with no injuries on him. Do you ever stop talking? Issei asked in a bored tone before Joker's grin widened, a bit fazed by the comment. Oh, you're adorable. But don't you see? The chaos has just begun. Without warning, Joker lunged at Issei with a hidden knife, aiming for his throat. Issei didn't move an inch when the knife struck his throat but shattered into pieces, shocking Joker before Issei grabbed Joker's arm, making Joker struggle to get away until he heard a strange sound leaving Issei's mouth. At first, it was a faint chuckle. A chuckle that slowly evolved into a faint laugh. Stop it, Joker said as the faint laugh began to grow, which made him even angrier, unaware of the explosion of the cloud seeder and the chemicals spilled around the duo on the rooftop, causing the smoke to envelop the roof. Hahaha. Issei chuckled slowly before speaking to Joker. It's no surprise that you were so obsessed with Batman, despite him being a bad joke like you. Don't you try to psychoanalyze me, boy. I don't need to understand joke like you, Issei said before punching Joker, sending him into an AC unit, causing Joker to slowly get up but barely see Issei through the smoke until Issei began to chat with his voice flying through the air and, for some reason, making Joker feel something he never felt even when facing Batman. Fear. The Joker, the clown prince of crime, was afraid of the being that was beginning to mock him while the gas continued to cover the rooftop. Laughter. Low, ominous, and growing louder, it echoed through the rooftop as the gas swirled around them. The Joker's eyes darted wildly, trying to locate Issei through the thickening smoke. You think you can scare me, you want a Batman? Joker yelled as he pulled out a shotgun and fired in the area, but Joker didn't hear a body collapse. However, the voice continued to mock the Joker. Boss joke now? Issei's voice taunted from somewhere within the cloud. You think you're chaos incarnate, but all you are is a sad clown whose time is up. The Joker, feeling the weight of true fear pressing down on him, tried to regain his composure. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small device, his trembling fingers barely able to press the button. You're nothing but a pathetic clown, Issei's voice reverberated through the smoke, echoing in Joker's ears. Hiding behind chaos because deep down, you're scared. Scared of being forgotten, scared of being irrelevant. Joker's eyes darted around, trying to pinpoint Issei's location. His grip on his device tightened, his mind racing. You think you're so clever, don't you? Just another hero in a long line of failures. He yelled into the haze. No, Issei's voice came from behind him. I'm something the other heroes will never be, a true protector. BZZT. Sparks flew from the device, and for a moment, the smoke parted, revealing Issei standing a few feet away, his eyes glowing with a fiery intensity. You don't scare me. Joker shrieked, desperately trying to free himself from Issei's grip. I'm the Joker. I am afraid. Issei closed the gap quickly as he then leaned in close, his breath against Joker's face. No, you're just a man who's run out of jokes. Desperation suits you, Joker. Before Joker could react, Issei moved with lightning speed, his hand closing around the Joker's throat. Lifting him effortlessly off the ground, Issei brought him close, their faces inches apart. Do you feel it? Issei whispered. The feeling of fear. It does not just exist in others. It exists within you, too. The Joker struggled, his hands clawing at Issei's armored arm, but his strength was nothing compared to the Dragon Knight's. Issei's grip tightened, and the Joker's face began to turn red. Say goodnight, Joker, Issei said coldly, his other hand forming a fist. But before he could deliver the final blow, a voice called out from the entrance to the rooftop. Issei, wait. Batman and Kara emerged from the smoke, both of them looking worse for wear due to there being a couple of goons who put up a good fight, but they still defeated them. Kara's eyes were filled with concern, while Batman's were hard and relentless. Don't do it, Kara said, stepping forward. Don't become like him. Issei hesitated, his grip loosening slightly. He looked at Kara, then back at the Joker, who was gasping for breath. He's not worth it, Batman added. Let him face justice the right way. For a moment, Issei considered it. He looked into the Joker's eyes, seeing the madness and chaos that had tormented Gotham for so long. But he also saw the fear, the humanity that still lingered beneath the surface. However, that was not enough to make Issei forgo his sense of justice, which is why Drake appeared and scoffed at them. So you mean to tell us that you'd rather let a psychotic villain, who's shown absolutely no mercy to thousands of innocent lives, have made his life's goal to try and kill you, tortured Jason for over a year in an abandoned wing at Arkham. Oh, and let's not forget how he literally blew Barbara's legs off and almost took her out of the game. He's a really good person there. Drake said while narrowing his eyes at them. How many more? Just think for a moment and ask yourself, Batman. How many people have died from these villains you let live or died in your name? Drake asked as Batman began to flash back to the many lives he saw live and die because of his actions. Batman's eyes flickered with the weight of memories and regret. He had always believed in the sanctity of life, but Drake's words cut deep, exposing the chinks in his moral armor. The deaths and the chaos were all caused by the very villains he refused to kill. Issei's grip on the Joker's throat tightened again, and Joker's eyes bulged with terror. For once, he had no quip, no sardonic comment, just pure, unfiltered fear. Issei, Kara said, her voice softer now but still urgent. Please. We're heroes. We don't cross that line. Issei hesitated, torn between his burning sense of justice and the moral high ground Kara and Batman were trying to uphold. The tension in the air was palpable, the weight of his decision hanging heavy. In that moment, Joker, gasping for air, managed a twisted smile. Even now you can't do it, you're just like them, Joker rasped, his voice weak but taunting. Issei's eyes burned with fury, and for a split second, it seemed like he might end it all right there. But then he looked at Kara, the compassion in her eyes, the belief in a better way. The eyes reminded him of a nun who showed so much warmth and kindness to even a devil that she was banished from a church, all because she wished to do good and live a life where she could live a normal life and have real friends. However, even kindness has its limits, and Issei had seen it abused and manipulated against the very nun he loved with all his heart. With a frustrated growl, Issei threw Joker to the ground, releasing his grip. Joker coughed violently, sucking in deep breaths of air, still grinning despite his near-death experience. There's a difference between you and Issei, Batman. We kill to ensure our future, and that a monster like him never returns from the grave. Drake said before Issei roared into the air, causing Joker to laugh no longer, but freeze as he saw not only death, but something else in front of him. The victims of his actions and sins were not pleased. Issei then summoned Ascalon as he dragged his sword on the roof, causing sparks to appear and making Joker back away. And no. Batman. Batman. Please help me. Please. Joker yelled as Issei walked towards the cowering villain, as if he were the Grim Reaper itself, and now death was coming for Joker's life. Issei didn't even care about how Kara tried to stop Issei with her super strength, which was nothing against a dragon. Batman's gadgets had no effects as well, which just annoyed Issei before he threw aside Kara and grabbed Joker by the throat and held him into the air with Ascalon raised high into the sky, with a pillar of light shining from the sword. Joker. Issei's voice thundered, reverberating through the rooftop. This is your judgment for all the lives you've destroyed, the people you've tortured, and the chaos you've spread. The Joker's eyes widened in true, unabashed fear. This feeling was a side of justice he had never faced, a relentless force that saw through his facade and aimed to end his reign of terror once and for all. No. No. You can't. Joker shrieked, his voice cracking with panic. I'm the Joker. I can't die. I can't. With one swift, decisive motion, Issei brought Ascalon down. The blade cut through the air with a blinding flash of light, and the Joker's screams were abruptly silenced. His body went limp, hanging from Issei's grasp for a brief moment before being unceremoniously dropped to the ground, lifeless and still. Kara and Batman stared in stunned silence, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. The Joker, the embodiment of chaos and terror in Gotham, was no more. Issei stood over the fallen villain, his eyes still burning with a fierce determination before Drake joined him and patted his partner's back. It is over. Drake declared, his voice firm and unyielding. No more innocents will suffer because of him. Issei nodded at his partner's words as Batman approached slowly, his expression a mixture of anger, sorrow, and a reluctant understanding. You crossed a line, Issei, he said quietly. One we can't uncross. Sometimes the line needs to be crossed, Issei replied, his voice steady. For the people. Kara stepped forward, her face etched with concern and a hint of sadness. Issei, we understand your pain, your anger. But this isn't who we are. Issei turned to face her, his expression softening slightly. Maybe it's not who you are, Kara. But it's who I need to be. With that, Issei sheathed Ascalon, the blade's light fading away. He walked past Batman and Kara, his steps heavy but resolute. I'm not a hero, he said, almost to himself. I'm a protector. And sometimes that means making the hard choices. As he disappeared into the shadows, Batman and Kara were left to grapple with the implications of what had transpired. The Joker was dead, and Gotham's future had been irrevocably changed. In the distance, the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds, casting a pale glow over the city. It was a new day, one free of the Joker's madness. But the cost of that freedom would linger in the hearts and minds of Gotham's protectors for a long time to come. In other news, the Joker, the clown prince of crime and mayhem, has been killed by a mysterious hero who seemed to be working with other vigilantes such as Batman, Red Hood, Oracle, and Supergirl, but it seems that the Batman and this new hero have different ideals about justice. The news lady reported before continuing by going down to the camera crew on the ground to hear their thoughts on Joker being killed. The scene cut to the bustling streets of Gotham, where the camera crew was interviewing citizens. A man in his mid-40s, dressed in a business suit, spoke first. "Honestly, it's about time someone did something," he said, a hint of relief in his voice. "The Joker has terrorized the city for too long. I'm just glad he's finally gone." The woman with her 2 young children nodded in agreement. "We lived in constant fear because of him," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I can finally sleep at night knowing he can't hurt my family anymore." But not everyone shared this sentiment. A young man wearing a Gotham University sweatshirt looked conflicted. "I understand why people are happy, but we can't just go around killing people," he said. "Even someone as evil as the Joker deserves a fair trial. What makes us different from them if we don't follow the rules?" The camera shifted to an older woman, her eyes filled with wisdom and sorrow. "The Joker caused so much pain," she said softly. "But taking a life, no matter whose, changes you. I worry about what this means for our heroes." The news returned to the studio, where the anchorwoman continued to report. "The debate over the Joker's death is dividing Gotham. Some see it as a necessary act of justice, while others fear it sets a dangerous precedent." The broadcast then cut to a statement from the Gotham Police Department. Commissioner Gordon stood at a podium, his face grave. "The GCPD does not condone vigilantism," he said firmly. "While the Joker's death may bring a sense of relief, we must uphold the rule of law. We will be investigating this incident thoroughly." And in other news, as the news report concluded, the television was turned off in the Batcave, where Batman stood watching the news, his expression somber. Kara, dressed as Supergirl, landed softly beside him. "They're divided," Kara said quietly, her eyes scanning the city below. "Issei's actions have stirred up a lot of emotions." Batman nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "He made a choice, one that will have lasting consequences. Gotham will never be the same." Kara sighed, her shoulders heavy with the weight of recent events. "Do you think he did the right thing?" Batman was silent for a moment, considering her question. "It's not about right or wrong," he finally said. "It's about the cost. And whether we're willing to pay it." Meanwhile, Issei stood on a distant rooftop, watching a city he had helped to protect. Drake's voice echoed in his mind. "You did what you believed was necessary, partner. But this path will not be an easy one." "I know," Issei replied, his voice unwavering. "But if it means keeping the people of Gotham safe, then it's a price I'm willing to pay." As the first stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, Gotham stood at a crossroads, its fate hanging in the balance. And for Issei, Batman, and Kara, the true battle had only just begun. The next day. The scene shifted to the Grand Hall of the Justice League Watchtower, high above the earth. The main 7 members, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Martian Manhunter, were gathered around a holographic table displaying various news reports and surveillance footage of the recent events in Gotham. Superman, his arms crossed and face stern, was the first to speak. "Bruce, we've all seen the reports. What happened?" Batman, standing at the end of the table, his cape draped over his shoulders, took a deep breath. "Issei killed the Joker. It was a decisive action, one he believed was necessary to protect Gotham. It's caused a significant divide among the city's citizens and within our community." Wonder Woman leaned forward, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. "What about the other villains in Arkham? How are they reacting?" Batman activated a holographic display showing several profiles of Gotham's most notorious criminals. "There's been an unprecedented response. Several villains who escaped during the chaos have turned themselves in, terrified of facing Issei's wrath. Others are living in constant fear, hiding and abandoning their plans." Flash, ever the optimist, tried to lighten the mood. "So, in a twisted way, it's working. Gotham's crime rate is dropping." Green Lantern, skeptical as always, shook his head. "Fear isn't a sustainable strategy, Flash. It can backfire. People need to feel safe, not terrorized by the ones who are supposed to protect them." Hawkgirl nodded in agreement. "We can't let this become the norm. Fear should not be the foundation of justice." Martian Manhunter, always the voice of reason, looked directly at Batman. "What do you propose we do, Bruce? Issei's actions have consequences. We need a plan." Batman remained silent for a moment, considering his words carefully. "Issei's actions, while extreme, have shown results. But we need to ensure this doesn't spiral out of control. We need to find a balance. We have to make sure that fear doesn't become the primary tool of justice." Superman stepped closer, placing a hand on Batman's shoulder. "We're with you, Bruce. We'll figure this out together. But we also need to understand Issei better. Who is he? What drives him?" Batman nodded, appreciating the support. From what Drake told us on the first day they appeared, Issei is a warrior from another world, driven by a deep sense of justice and protection. But his methods are shaped by different experiences and harsher realities. We need to help him understand our principles, our way of doing things. As the discussion continued, the Watchtower's advanced surveillance system detected unusual activity in Gotham. An alert popped up on the holographic display, showing several Arkham escapees voluntarily walking into police stations, surrendering themselves with expressions of sheer terror. Green Lantern raised an eyebrow. "Looks like the Joker's death has really shaken them up. They're calling Issei by another name now." Superman glanced at the display, reading the new moniker being whispered among Gotham's criminal underworld. "The Dragon Knight," he read aloud, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "They see him as an unstoppable force, something more than just a vigilante." Wonder Woman, her eyes thoughtful, spoke up. "We need to harness that. Turn it into a symbol of hope, not fear. If Issei can become a beacon of justice, a true protector in the eyes of the people, we might be able to reshape the narrative." Batman nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "I'll talk to Issei. We need to guide him and show him the way we operate. With our support, he can be a powerful ally, not just for Gotham but for the world." The League members agreed, each understanding the delicate balance they needed to maintain. As they dispersed to handle their respective duties, Batman lingered for a moment, his mind racing with the possibilities and the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, with the Dragon Knight in Gotham. In Gotham, the night was calm, and the city was unusually quiet. Issei stood atop a skyscraper, gazing down at the streets below. He could feel the shift, the palpable fear among the criminals, and the cautious hope among the citizens. Drake's voice echoed in his mind, steady and reassuring. "You did the right thing, partner. The Joker was just another version of Rizavum, and he would never redeem himself for his sins or actions. Others may see you with fear, but you expected that, didn't you?" Issei nodded, determination burning in his eyes. "I did, Drake. For this city, for those who can't protect themselves." He then recalled a time when he was young and how he desired to become a hero of justice. However, during his time as a devil in the Red Dragon Emperor, Issei learned that justice took many different forms, and he saw both the good and bad of the ideals of the people he fought with. However, Issei cared about protecting his loved ones, which led to Issei being unsure of who his enemies he could trust until Vali fought alongside him, which helped Issei realize that not all of his enemies are truly evil, like Rizavum Lucifer, which is why Issei ensured to see if they were either guilty or redeemable, but if not, then he'd kill them. It's why he let Pamela live, since Issei could tell that Pamela is a neutral person and cared deeply for Harley, someone who showed her kindness and love. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Issei knew that his journey had only just begun, which is why he'd fight to continue protecting his loved ones, and if he had to stain his hands with blood, then that is the path he would walk on until death claims his soul once and for all. Issei was walking around without his armor, knowing that people wouldn't recognize him unless he had his armor on, which suited Issei well, knowing that his identity was hidden from villains. It was a week just after Issei had killed Joker. If he was being honest, Issei had no regrets about killing the psychopath who didn't give a damn about killing like many of the others that the heroes locked up only for them to escape and go through with their plans again. Issei couldn't stand the idea of letting killers and monsters in human flesh run freely, since he learned that even though he wanted to be a hero when he was a child, Issei learned something very cruel, yet eye-opening to his ideal. Being a hero doesn't always mean saving everyone, since it's impossible to save everyone in the world, which is why Issei was content to protect his loved ones and knew that they were strong enough to protect their own loved ones. Heroes aren't the ones who wore capes and moved buildings, but the ones who make the most difficult decisions to save and protect as many lives as they can while living with the burden of their actions. Which is why when Issei looked at the members of the Justice League, he couldn't follow through with their decisions, since they allowed someone like Lex Luthor, Joker, Gorilla Grodd, and many other villains who wanted to take over the world, and what was their ultimate punishment? A slap on the wrist and put in prison. That's not a punishment worthy of their crimes. That's a blessing for them, since, back in Issei's world, they would have been executed or killed on the spot. Bragg appeared next to Issei and gave his own 2 cents to his partner. "I know what you're thinking," Dryag said while Issei put headphones on his head and began to play music to make it look like he was humming to the music before speaking to Drake. "And? I understand why you don't fully trust them yet, and to be honest, I get it, especially since they couldn't understand the pain of losing everything only to nothing left except the powers you have in myself," Dryag said. At the same time, Issei nodded in response until he saw a newspaper and paid for one to read the news in Gotham City. Issei's eyes widened seeing that Lex Luthor was running for president, which made Issei surprised since he saw Superman's arch-nemesis's file on Brainiac's ship and couldn't see what he was seeing before Drake read the article as well before whistling in surprise, which no one around them could hear since Drake was part of Issei, ergo only Issei could hear him. Issei's grip tightened on the newspaper, crumpling the edges. The idea of Lex Luthor as president was anathema to him. He could imagine the kind of chaos and corruption Luthor would unleash upon the world if given that much power. Issei had no doubt that Luthor's presidency would be a nightmare not only for the heroes, but for every ordinary person who just wanted to live their lives in peace. "I can't believe this," Issei muttered, keeping his voice low despite his anger. "How can people even consider selecting someone like him?" Drake's voice rumbled in his mind, soothing yet firm. "People can be easily swayed by words and appearances. Luthor has always been a master manipulator. It's not surprising he's managed to charm the public." Issei sighed, folding the newspaper under his arm. "I can't let this happen. There has to be a way to stop him." "You need to be careful," Drake cautioned. "You're still new to this world. You don't have the same connections and resources as the Justice League." Issei nodded reluctantly. Drake was right. Charging in recklessly would only help some. He needed to be strategic and find allies who shared his concerns about Luthor. But who could he trust? As he walked through the bustling streets of Gotham, his mind raced with possibilities. He could reach out to Batman. The Dark Knight was known for his distrust of Luthor and might be willing to listen. Then again, Issei's methods and philosophy often clashed with Batman's, and trust would be a fragile thing, especially since Batman doesn't trust anyone who isn't himself. Lost in thought, Issei almost missed the small commotion happening at a nearby alley. A group of thugs was harassing a young woman, their intentions clear and malicious. Issei's eyes narrowed. This was something he could deal with right now. He approached the alley, slipping into the shadows. One of the thugs noticed him and sneered. "What's this?" Another hero wanted. "Get lost, kid, before you get hurt." Issei didn't bother with a response. In a flash, he was among them, fists and feet moving with practiced precision. The thugs didn't stand a chance. Within moments, they were all on the ground, groaning in pain. The woman looked up at Issei with wide, grateful eyes. Thank you so much." Issei nodded, offering her a hand to help her up. "It's okay. Just be careful around here." As the woman hurried away, Issei couldn't help but think about the larger battle ahead. Stopping muggers and thugs was one thing, but taking on someone like Lex Luthor required more than just physical strength. It required allies, information, and a plan. First things first, Issei murmured to himself, making a decision. "I need to talk to Batman. I'm afraid you'll have to make do with us." Superman's voice said before Issei turned around to see that Superman was flying down and landed on the ground. Issei turned slowly, eyeing Superman with a mixture of wariness and respect. He had seen enough of Superman's capabilities to know the Man of Steel was not someone to take lightly, but Issei also knew that their ideologies differed significantly. "Us?" Issei asked, raising an eyebrow. Superman nodded and gestured to the rooftop, where Batman stood watching with his usual stoic demeanor. "We need to talk," Batman said, his voice a gravelly monotone. Issei folded his arms, assessing the situation. "About Luthor?" he asked. "Among other things," Superman replied, stepping closer. "We know you're new here, but you've already made quite an impact after killing Joker. However, we need to understand your motives and see if we can work together." Issei glanced between the two heroes. He knew this was a critical moment. Gaining their trust, or at least their cooperation, could be pivotal in stopping Luthor's rise to power. Still, Issei also needed to stay true to his principles, even if it meant clashing with the Justice League, since there were some that Issei didn't fully trust. "I don't agree with your methods," Issei said bluntly. "You let villains like Joker and Luthor run free. In my world, they would face true justice." Batman narrowed his eyes while Superman remained calm. "We're not here to debate our methods," Batman said. "We want to know if you're willing to help us. Running for president is a threat we can't ignore." Issei sighed, knowing that working with them might be his best chance to stop Luthor. "I'll help," he said. "But we do things my way. No holding back against monsters like Luthor." Superman exchanged a glance with Batman, who nodded slightly. "We'll discuss our approach," Superman said. "For now, we need to gather information and plan our next move." Issei nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. This was just the beginning, but at least he was no longer alone in this fight. "Alright," he said. "Let's take down Luthor." As they left the alley together, Issei couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The battle ahead would be difficult, but with allies like Superman and Batman, he had a fighting chance. The journey to the Batcave was swift, with Issei flanked by Batman and Superman. Upon arrival, the dark cavernous space was illuminated by the soft glow of monitors and the hum of advanced technology. Issei's eyes adjusted to the dim light as he took in the sight of the Batcave's impressive arsenal and computer systems. Standing by one of the workbenches was Red Hood, his iconic helmet resting on the table. He glanced up as the trio entered, a smirk crossing his face. Well, look who it is," Red Hood said, crossing his arms. "The guy who finally put that psycho Joker down for good." Issei nodded in acknowledgement. "He deserved worse," he replied simply. "You're not wrong," Red Hood agreed, shooting a glance at Batman. "It's about time someone did what needed to be done." Batman frowned, his eyes narrowing. "We don't kill Jason. It's not our way." Red Hood rolled his eyes. "Yeah, and look where that's gotten us. Sometimes, you have to make the hard choices." The tension in the room was palpable, but before it could escalate, Drake materialized beside Issei. "Enough of this," the dragon growled. "We have bigger issues to deal with." Everyone turned to face Drake, intrigued. "What do you suggest?" Superman asked. Drake's eyes gleamed with a fierce intensity. "Cadmus. I've got a feeling that Luthor and Cadmus have captured the Royal Flush Gang, the same teenagers who were locked up like Ace. We need to find Cadmus, bust out the people they've got locked up there, and destroy Cadmus from the inside." The dragon conjured up a series of holographic drawings, illustrating the plan with childish-like drawings with Drake, Issei, and Red Hood, shooting the place up before they destroy the building and kill Luthor before pissing on his grave. Issei liked this plan, given the fact that Issei nodded and gave them a thumbs up. "I agree. Cadmus is a threat. We need to take them down." Batman, however, looked skeptical. "Cadmus is a government project. It's designed to keep the Justice League in check. Even if we destroy it, the government will rebuild it. We need to be strategic." Superman crossed his arms, considering the plan. "Batman has a point. We can't just storm into Lexcorp without a solid strategy, plus Cadmus has been keeping a low profile, and we don't know where they are, so until then, we need to gather more intel, find out exactly what Luthor is planning, and then act." Issei slammed his hands on the table, causing it to cave in while glaring at them with annoyance. "We can't wait too long. If Luthor is involved with Combustion, people are in danger." Batman sighed, rubbing his temples. "We need to tread carefully. If we move too quickly, then we risk exposing ourselves and putting the Justice League in a bad light in the eyes of the public." Bragg huffed in frustration but nodded. "Look, we may not be from your world, but this isn't just going to sit around and wait for us to figure things out." "Agreed," Superman said. "Which is why we'll gather more information on Cadmus and Luthor's plans. Once we have a clearer picture, then we can decide our next move." Issei clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the mission ahead, but felt trapped by going by their rules and how they were wasting time. TCH. Superman and Batman then left the Batcave, while Issei and Red Hood were alone until Issei turned to Red Hood, his curiosity piqued. "What happened to Harley and Pamela?" he asked, his voice steady and concerned about Poison Ivy and Harley's condition and situation, given what happened when Joker injected Harley with a good dosage of the Joker toxin. Red Hood's expression softened slightly, his demeanor shifting from defiance to concern. "Harley and Pamela are complicated cases," he admitted before continuing. "Pamela Poison Ivy was instrumental in neutralizing Joker's toxin since her knowledge of plants and chemicals was crucial to creating an antidote and left it for Harley, but after the dust settled, Poison Ivy went underground, quite literally, and has been keeping a low profile since then." Issei nodded, grateful for Pamela's assistance, but still worried about Harley. "And Harley?" Red Hood sighed, a hint of guilt in his eyes. "Harley took the brunt of Joker's last act. The dosage of the toxin she received was extreme. She looked like she was living her worst nightmares over and over again. It took a while to pin her down, so she wouldn't hurt herself. Afterward, we rushed her to the Gotham Medical Hospital for criminals. It was touch and go for a while, but Harley pulled through. Batman and I made sure she got the medical attention she needed." Bragg stepped forward. His face was covered by a Batman mask, which looked like stoic determination before he spoke like Bruce. "Harley's recovery was touch and go for a while, but she managed to survive. She's currently in a secure location, receiving ongoing treatment and rehabilitation." Issei's eyes narrowed slightly while hiding the fact he was laughing in his mind at Drake's impersonation. "Is she safe?" Red Hood nodded. "As safe as she can be. She's under constant watch, and we're ensuring she gets the help she needs." Issei let out a small sigh of relief. Despite Harley's past, she had made an effort to change, and he respected that. "Good. She deserves a chance to find peace." Red Hood placed a reassuring hand on Issei's shoulder. "We'll keep an eye on her. You did good, Issei. Taking down Joker was a necessary evil. But don't let it consume you." Issei nodded, appreciating Red Hood's words. "Thanks. I just want to make sure no one else suffers." Bragg, who had been worried about his partner's mental health, spoke up. "Issei, your actions have had a significant impact. We'll do whatever it takes to stop Luthor and any other criminals, as well as protect the innocent. Which means we should move forward. We can't afford to waste any more time." Red Hood turned back to his personal computer, typing rapidly. "I'll start gathering intel on Cadmus. I can reach out to my contacts and see if they can find any leads on Luthor's or Cadmus's activities. You should go check on Harley. She knows about you thanks to Ivy and wants to speak to you about Joker." Issei nodded as he and Drake made their way to the Gotham Medical Center under the sun. The hospital loomed ahead, its sterile walls and bright lights contrasting sharply with the shadowy streets of Gotham. However, Issei wasn't interested in just waiting to see Harley at the hospital. "Let's be quiet," Issei whispered to Drake, who nodded in agreement. Issei slipped into the hospital through a side entrance, moving with practiced stealth. Issei navigated the hallways, avoiding security cameras and hospital staff, until they reached the room where Harley Quinn was being kept. Issei gently opened the door and entered the room, finding Harley asleep in her bed, her face peaceful despite the ordeal she had been through. Issei approached the bedside table, finding Harley's medical report. As he read through it, Drake materialized next to him once again, his presence a comforting one. All was quiet until Issei said a question that would surprise anyone who knew him. "Did you plant the bug?" Issei asked softly before Drake nodded in response with a smile on his face. "You bet. Well, we were in the Batcave. I planted a bug on the big computer. It's already transmitting all of its data, so while you chat with Harley, I'll be going through Batman's files on Cadmus as we speak, since I could tell that Batman lied about having any information thanks to a guy named The Question." Drake couldn't believe the ridiculousness of superhero names, so he ignored them while going through the files. Issei nodded, grateful for Drake's efficiency. He continued to read Harley's report, noting the extensive treatment she had received. Despite the severity of her condition, the doctors had managed to stabilize her. As he read, he heard a soft groan from the bed. Harley Quinn was waking up, her eyes fluttering open. She gasped in pain, then froze when she saw Issei standing by her bedside. "Who?" she began, her voice weak. Issei turned to face her, offering a small smile. "It's my Issei. You probably don't recognize me without my armor." Harley's eyes widened slightly as recognition dawned on her, recalling the person that was next to Pamela and the one who killed the Joker, since the armored man was on the news, but the man under the armor was in front of her eyes. "Issei Haidu? What are you doing here?" "I wanted to check on you," Issei replied gently. "You went through a lot." Harley managed a weak smile. "Yeah, you could say that. Joker always knew how to throw a party." Issei frowned, the memory of Joker's madness still fresh in his mind. "You didn't deserve what he did to you. I'm glad you're okay." Harley sighed, looking away. "It's been a rough ride. But I'm trying to be better." Issei turned back to Harley, who was now fully awake and looking at him with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. He sat down on a chair next to her bed, his expression softening. "Harley, now that Joker is gone, what will you do?" Harley stared at the ceiling for a moment before sighing deeply. "I don't know, Issei. My whole life has been wrapped up in his madness. I was a damn good therapist before I became his jester, but now that he's gone maybe I can finally figure out who I am without him. Maybe I can actually do some good for a change." Issei nodded, understanding the turmoil she must be feeling. "You have a chance to start over. Don't waste it." As they talked, Drake continued his work, sifting through the files he had accessed from the big computer. Suddenly, he found something intriguing. "Issei, I've located a file known as Project Firestorm. It involves a metahuman that Superman has faced regularly, someone named Volcano." Issei's attention was immediately drawn to Drake's discovery. Volcanowat's her connection to Cadmus. Drake projected the file contents for Issei to see. As a teenager, Claire Selton showed an aptitude for pyrokinesis, the ability to start and control fire with her mind. Her parents sent her to Metropolis's Center for Paranormal Studies so that she could learn how to control her power. Still, she was soon spirited away by government agents working for a program called Project Firestorm. They planned to train her as a living weapon. Given the codename Volcano, she was trained and indoctrinated by government agents, but rebelled and escaped. Drake said before reading more of Volcana's file, which made Issei's left hand clench in rage. Hearing this, Drake continued. Now a fugitive, Volcana survived the only way she could. By stealing. This caught the attention of Superman. He unearthed the government agency and its renegade chief, Kurt, and caused it to shut down. He relocated Volcana to an abandoned island where she could find a chance to reorganize her life and turn over a new leaf. Superman makes periodic supply deliveries to the island, and Volcana takes the opportunity to flirt with him when he visits her. During one such visit, she commented that he was always polite and that his mother must have raised him well, to which he answered that he'd been lucky in that respect, and she agreed with him, showing bitterness that she had never been that fortunate. Issei frowned, his concern growing. "We need to stop them." But there's more, isn't there? Drake nodded. Yes. I've also managed to hack into the warehouse where Red Hood faced the Royal Flush Gang. The security system was breached for just a moment, but I saw something or someone unusual. It looked like Supergirl, but different. Issei's eyes widened in surprise. Supergirl. But different. Drake displayed a brief image he had captured. This is what I saw. It matches the description of a clone known as Galadia, created by Cadmus to be a more ruthless version of Supergirl. Issei studied the image, realizing the gravity of the situation. If Cadmus has someone like Galadia, they could be planning something big. We need to find this facility and stop them. Harley, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Issei, whatever you're planning, be careful. I know Cadmus from the underworld, and trust me when I say that these guys are dangerous and that they'll do anything to protect their secrets. Issei nodded, appreciating her concern. I will. And I'll make sure no one else gets hurt. With their conversation concluded, Issei and Drake made their way back to the rooftop of Wayne Industries, their temporary base of operations. As they walked, Issei's mind was racing with thoughts of how to proceed. The discovery of Project Firestorm and the presence of Galadia meant that Cadmus's plans were far more advanced and dangerous than they had anticipated. Reaching a secluded area, Issei contacted Ace and Red Hood, updating them on the latest findings that Drake found on Cadmus. We've found something important. Cadmus is experimenting on metahumans to have as soldiers should the Justice League become a threat to the world. One of Themis volcano, a former weapon they tried to create, but that's not all. Drake nodded when Issei looked his way and pulled up the video and file before explaining his part of the shocking news. They have a clone of Supergirl called Galadia. Genetically engineered to be a more ruthless version of Supergirl, and the man who had the DNA to make it possible was none other than Professor Hamilton, the same professor who worked on Supergirl and saved her life when Superman nearly killed her when Darkseid manipulated him. Red Hood was shocked by this before asking. What do you plan on doing now? Ace then had her own questions. Why would they try to create a clone of Kara? Issei chuckled before replying. Fear and security, Issei said before clearing his throat some more, which has been working a bit better since he was able to rest his body when Ace and Kara forced Issei to get some sleep when he wasn't helping the Kent family. They needed security when Superman goes rogue or the Justice League. That's why they were training you as well, Ace. Issei said. Ace looked down at the ground as her hands went to her arms and held them, just as the experiments and tests appeared in her mind once again, until Issei reached through the screen and comforted her by pulling Ace to Issei's side. Much to their shock, before Ace found herself in the arms of her savior and brother. They wouldn't harm you anymore, Issei said before patting her head and rubbing it, making Ace smile in relief until Red Hood interrupted them. Sorry to cut in, but what do you plan to do now? Red Hood asked before Dryag laughed in response. Well, what else would we do? We're going to pay a visit to the professor and ask for directions to Cadmus. Drake said before laughing while enjoying the fun they're going to have without the annoying heroes getting in their way. Later in the evening. Professor Hamilton was just closing up his lab, the sterile white walls and gleaming surfaces casting an eerie glow in the dimming light. He let out a tired sigh, reaching for the lights to turn them off when a sudden presence stopped him in his tracks. Going somewhere, Professor? Issei's voice echoed in the quiet lab. Hamilton turned slowly, finding Issei standing at the entrance in his armor, Drake looming beside him in his spiritual form, checking his claws, and Ace leaning casually against the wall, staring at him with an angry look on her face. Hamilton's eyes widened in surprise and fear, recognizing Ace as well as the armored knight. What do you want? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. Issei stepped forward, his gaze piercing, making Hamilton freeze in fear until Issei spoke to him. We need to have a little chat about Cadmus and your involvement in their projects. Hamilton swallowed hard, his mind racing for an escape, but Issei grabbed him by the collar and pinned him to the wall, startling him. I don't know what you're talking about. Drake let out a low growl, annoyed by the false act. You can drop the act. Don't play dumb with us, Hamilton, since we know about Project Firestorm and Galadia. As well as the Royal Flush Gang, which Luthor helped clean up since they were assisting Joker. Hamilton's face paled hearing this before stuttering. I can't talk about that. It's classified. Ace stepped forward, her eyes cold and unyielding. Classified or not, you're going to tell us everything you know. Starting with how far Cadmus's plans go. Her eyes then began to turn into swirls as Hamilton began to stutter until he yelled with no one hearing his screams, thanks to Drake closing off the outside from the lab, so no sounds escaped. Issei stood over Professor Hamilton, his eyes cold and unyielding. The room was dimly lit, casting long shadows across the walls. Hamilton restrained in a heavy chair, trembling as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Ace stood beside Issei, her eyes glowing faintly as she focused her mental powers on Hamilton's mind. Please, Hamilton stammered, his voice quivering with fear, I don't know what you want. Just let me go. Issei scoffed, the sound harsh and mocking. He leaned in closer, his expression a mask of disdain. How many metas begged for mercy, Hamilton? How many pleaded for their lives, only to be treated like weapons by Cadmus? Hamilton's eyes darted around the room, seeking an escape that wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. Ace intensified her mental assault, causing Hamilton to cry out in pain. Don't lie to us, she said, her voice eerily calm. We know everything. We just want to hear it from you. Hamilton's resistance crumbled under the combined assault. Alright. We did experiments. We treated them like tools. But it wasn't my decision. I was just following orders. Issei's expression darkened. That's not good enough. You had a choice. And you chose to strip them of their humanity, violated the trust of Supergirl to make a clone, and who knows what else. Hamilton's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. It was for the greater good. We had to protect humanity from the Justice League since the Justice Lords, and when Superman went rogue are the reasons Cadmus exists. Issei's first collided with the side of Hamilton's face, the impact echoing through the room. The greater good. Issei snarled. How many lives were ruined for your greater good? How many families were torn apart? Ace stepped closer, her presence looming over Hamilton. You have to answer for your actions, Professor. The ones you experimented on were people with lives, dreams, and families. Like me, but you and Cadmus treated us like we were nothing but tools to use in your war. Hamilton sobbed, the weight of his guilt crushing him. I'm so sorry. Issei leaned back, his gaze unwavering. Sorry, won't bring them back. But you can start making amends by telling us everything about Cadmus. Their plans, their projects, everything. Hamilton nodded frantically. I'll tell you everything. Just please, no more. Issei and Ace exchanged a glance. Ace's eyes stopped glowing, and she eased up on the mental pressure. Issei's stern expression softened slightly, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. You'd better not hold anything back, Issei warned. Because if we find out you're lying or omitting details, we'll be back. And next time, there won't be any mercy. Hamilton swallowed hard and began to spill everything he knew about Cadmus, his voice shaky but sincere. Issei and Ace listened intently, piecing together the information that would help them take down Cadmus and ensure justice for those who had suffered at their hands. Hamilton's voice trembled as he began to divulge Cadmus's secrets. The main facility is located in an underground bunker beneath Washington, D.C. It's heavily guarded, with multiple layers of security. They have advanced technology, weapons, and even metahuman deterrence. Issei's eyes narrowed. What are they planning? Hamilton hesitated, glancing nervously between Issei and Ace. They're developing weapons and clones designed to control or eliminate metahumans. One of their top projects is a clone of Supergirl named Galadia. She's stronger, faster, and completely loyal to Cadmus. Ace's eyes flashed with anger. And you're complicit in all of this? Hamilton shook his head, tears streaming down his face. I thought that Superman was once a good man, a guardian angel sent to Earth to protect us, but Lucifer was an angel as well, and he betrayed God. Ray growled at this, considering Hamilton's words. So that's it. One little event caused you to betray them and work with people who give two shits about your morals. Your little organization basically stripped kids of their free will and took them away when they had nothing just to have your little weapons for when the Justice League becomes a real threat. Oh, and I'm sure the government knows that you literally work with children since they're only metahuman, so they can't possibly be treated as humans or trusted, right? Issei was furious at Hamilton and what Cadmus does to metahumans before glaring at him with hatred. You say you cared about protecting Earth, but what about those you call monsters? What about the ones you manipulate to use, but that doesn't absolve you of responsibility? Still, you've given us valuable information. Hamilton looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Does that mean you let me go? Issei nodded slowly. Yes, I'll allow it. But remember, this isn't forgiveness. It's a chance for you to live with what you've done. Hamilton sighed in relief, slumping in his chair. Thank you. Thank you. Issei turned to Ace, who was still glaring at Hamilton before Issei leaned down and whispered into her ear. I'll give you a moment with him. Make sure he understands the gravity of his actions. Ace's expression was unreadable as she nodded, but Issei noticed a twitch on her as if she was about to smile. Understood. Issei exited the room, closing the door behind him. Issei and Drake stood outside, hearing muffled voices through the thick walls. Suddenly, Hamilton's voice rose in a panicked scream, followed by the sickening sound of flesh tearing and blood splattering. The scream abruptly cut off, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Issei re-entered the room to find Hamilton's lifeless body blown to pieces in the room, blood splattered across the walls and floor. Ace stood in the center of the room, her clothes and face smeared with blood. She looked at Issei, her expression calm and composed. Issei approached her, pulling a washcloth from his pocket. He gently wiped the blood from her face, his touch surprisingly tender as if he was tending to a child. You did what needed to be done. Ace nodded, her voice soft. He was too dangerous to be left alive. Cadmus would have found a way to use him again. Issei finished cleaning the blood from her face and clothes, his expression serious. We'll save them, Ace. I promise. Ace nodded before the trio headed to their location, which would shake the world. Cadmus headquarters. Washington, D.C. It was a quiet evening in Cadmus, and the soldiers didn't seem afraid or worried about anyone attacking them, since the Justice League didn't know where they were, all except for a certain trio. Especially a being that was more powerful than the Justice League combined. Hey, did they ever catch that knight that they had back in the last lab? No, but the knight seems to have taken that weird girl that looked like a doll. Oh yeah, I heard about her. Apparently, the only reason they kept her around was because she was a good puppet to use, since her mind powers can mess up your brains and turn you crazy. Ha. Maybe Joker would like to take her then. The four guards then shared a laugh, unaware that the knight was approaching the base. Meanwhile, a certain being that was kept in a healing chamber seemed to have sensed said knight nearing the lab before his eyes began to slowly open. The being felt the power near the lab, and it made his whole body shiver as if feeling a god enter the lab, as if to save him from his prison after what the Kryptonian and the people in the lab had done to him. Master, the being said in his head before smirking at the carnage that would soon happen until his master would release him from his prison. So this is Cadmus headquarters. I honestly expected more security from them. Drake said while combing through the database and the security cameras before disabling them from activation until returning to the front to see Issei take on a different form that was almost similar to his knight armor. Still, this time, the armor appeared to be sleeker and mechanical, which made Drake chuckle, recalling a space TV show that Issei had watched, and his armor was a reference to the villain. Really? General Grievous is your inspiration for an assassin? Drake asked before Issei turned to him. He replied by summoning a sword of light in both hands. It's to strike for into their hearts, Issei said, which only made Drake laugh a bit more until she saw Ace walk towards them, wearing a costume that Drake made for her to hide her identity. The moon cast a soft, silvery light over the Cadmus headquarters as Issei, Ace, and Drake approached with stealth and precision. The guards outside were oblivious to the imminent danger, their laughter echoing in the still night. Ace wore a black form-fitting suit that clung to her like a second skin. The suit was designed with advanced materials, making it bulletproof and resistant to various forms of detection. It had built-in tech to dampen sound, making her movements nearly inaudible. A mask covered her face, leaving only her mask's widened eyes visible. Now that their cameras and security are down in the vents and prisoners' chambers, we can begin our invasion, Issei said, his voice a deep mechanical rumble through his helmet. We need to be swift and precise. No mistakes. Now, remember the plan. Ace and Drake will locate any prisoners and release them, as well as disable their prisons and inhibitors. We are going to free them and show Cadmus not to underestimate us. Issei said it in full sentences, which shocked Ace before Drake explained it was the mask that was speaking with a voice modulator to make his voice different for the operation. Issei then began to walk towards the entrance and smiled since he knew his part was crucial. 8. Issei liked this since Ace was sneakier than him before the duo went ahead of Issei, which was his signal to have fun. Issei sliced open the doors, which caused the guards to be shocked until Issei leaped towards them and sliced their guns in half before knocking them out with his clawed boots, which amused him before continuing forward towards Cadmus before the guards freaked out. Seeing that they were being attacked, their signals were jammed. Miss Waller. Someone broke into Cadmus and took out the main entrance guards. A soldier said to Waller, who was shocked at this before being shown a video of Issei taking down the guards before growling at this. Send in Task Force X to capture it alive or kill it so we can learn who sent that thing after us. Waller said before tapping a button to contact Professor Hamilton, but she received an answer when she asked her people to hack the lab cameras. However, it showed a sight that shocked Amanda to the core. The corpse of Professor Hamilton's body and blood, or what's left of it, that is. I'll be damned, Waller said before watching the video of Issei slicing through the soldiers before he looked at the camera and spoke to her. I know you can hear and see me, Miss Waller, and yes, I killed Hamilton for I was hired to release your weapons unto the world and be released into the custody of my master, Issei said in his mask before Waller narrowed her eyes and replied. And who is this master of yours? You should know him well since he is the one who saved Ace after all. This caused Amanda to be afraid since she recalled the knight that walked through her soldiers as if nothing and killed many of them without hesitation, but she also had other superhumans working for her in Cadmus. You have no idea who you are messing with, Amanda said, which made Issei laugh at her until he stopped to reply. I was just about to say the same about myself and my master, Issei said before destroying the camera, making Amanda glare at it before seeing her team prepare to intercept him in the middle of Cadmus's base. The battle arena. Task Force X. The target is at the battle arena. We'll trap him there so you can take him on. Kill him. Amanda Waller said before pulling out a flash drive from a computer and began to head to the rooftop. As long as Amanda was alive and the data on all of their operations was with the government, then they could restart in a new location. And besides, Luthor is still sending us more than enough funds for the other lab we have, so at least he's good for something, Amanda said while climbing up the stairs to the helicopter pad to get to her transportation. The battle arena. Issei was enjoying himself since he was playing with his food before killing them, which was a fate better than torture, until he stopped to see that 100 soldiers that tried to take him down led him to an arena, which made Issei smile under his mask, knowing that they wanted him here. Interesting facilities. I assume this is where you force the children and others you kidnap and psychologically torture to make them become your little weapons of war? Issei asked before Waller spoke in the speaker. It's for the safety of the world since metahumans cannot be trusted and are only good for doing the most dangerous jobs under our control. So you justify orchestrating the destruction of the children's lives of some and kidnap them like what you did with Ace before using that headband to control her like a puppet? Issei asked, which made Waller silent for a bit until she replied. This is going to be your grave, Waller said as the arena locked him in before. Issei heard Waller end the call before unleashing a powerful entity into the arena, which made Issei stare at it in wonder. The entity, or Doomsday, the monstrous creature created by Cadmus, stood as a nightmarish figure in the dim light of his containment chamber. His appearance was nothing short of terrifying, a blend of raw power and primal fury. He was a towering figure, easily over 8 feet tall, with a massive muscular build that seemed to radiate strength. His skin was a mottled gray, resembling stone more than flesh, and was covered in jagged bony protrusions that jutted out from his body at irregular angles. These bone spurs looked like natural armor, providing both protection and a lethal offensive capability. Doomsday's face was a mask of rage and brutality. His eyes glowed with a malevolent red light set deep within a skull-like visage. His mouth was filled with sharp fang-like teeth, capable of tearing through steel and flesh alike. His brow was furrowed, giving him a perpetually menacing expression. His limbs were proportionate to his massive body, ending in large hands with fingers tipped in razor-sharp claws. These claws, like the rest of his body, were designed for destruction, capable of ripping through almost any material with ease. Every movement of Doomsday exuded raw power. His muscles rippled beneath his thick skin, and the ground seemed to tremble slightly with each step he took. Despite his massive size, there was an unsettling grace to his movements, hinting at a predatory agility that belied his bulk. In essence, Doomsday was the embodiment of destruction, a living weapon forged by Cadmus to counter any threat. His appearance alone was enough to instill fear, a visual testament to the power and danger he represented. Doomsday's eyes then opened to see Issei, who wasn't scared of him, but impressed before the chamber opened to release Doomsday, which made him give in to his instincts and attack Issei. Issei stood his ground, swords of light in each hand, ready to face Doomsday. The creature charged with a ferocious roar, the ground trembling beneath his feet. As Doomsday lunged, Issei sidestepped, narrowly avoiding a devastating blow. Doomsday's fist crashed into the ground, creating a crater where Issei had been standing. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through the arena, but Issei remained composed, analyzing his opponent's movements. From what I recall in Brainiac's files, Doomsday is a weapon that was crafted in the most extreme conditions imaginable. An ultimate and unstoppable force of destruction and devastation. Issei pondered in his mind while playing the long game of dodging and blocking Doomsday's attacks, recalling Brainiac's files on the immortal weapon. Scientists on the planet Krypton engineered a creature to be the ultimate weapon. This creature, the ultimate, had no purpose except destruction and made his way across other planets before finally being defeated. Buried on the primitive planet Earth, he stirred awake after many centuries and unleashed death, earning himself the name Doomsday. The monster is finally stopped by Superman, who seemingly loses his own life in the process. Driven by an instinct to hunt the inhabitants of his own homeworld, Doomsday has resurfaced time and time again to threaten Superman and his adopted planet no matter what gets in his way. However, Issei also knows that with immortality, there is a consequence, which is why he was watching Doomsday try to harm Issei, but could tell that his body was covered in old wounds that have healed over, possibly from many battles that Doomsday had with Superman. I see. That's Doomsday's weakness. Issei said in his mind while he was wondering how his colleagues were doing on their mission. Drake and Ace, meanwhile, had infiltrated the facility's deeper levels. Using her stealth suit, Ace moved like a shadow, bypassing guards and security measures. Drake, providing tactical support, guided her to the prisoners' cells. Keep an eye on the door while I disable the cells and free the prisoners, Drake instructed. Ace nodded before Drake smiled as his fingers danced over the control panel. One by one, the cells opened, and the prisoners, Volcana, the Royal Flush Gang, and a few others were freed with a mixture of hope and confusion. You're free now. Follow us to a safe location, Ace said softly, leading them out, while Drake snapped his fingers and opened a portal to an undisclosed location that wasn't near cities or large crowds of people. Back in the arena, Doomsday was relentless. He swung his massive arms, each strike intended to crush Issei. But Issei's agility and combat skills kept him one step ahead. He parried Doomsday's blows with his light swords, each clash sending sparks flying. Issei knew he couldn't defeat Doomsday alone through sheer strength. He needed to outsmart the beast. With a calculated move, he led Doomsday toward a series of support columns. As Doomsday lunged again, Issei ducked, causing Doomsday to smash into the column, weakening the structure. Issei continued this tactic, using the environment to his advantage. Columns cracked and crumbled under Doomsday's fury, the arena becoming increasingly unstable. You finished. I know your weakness, but I will give you one chance. Stand down and surrender to me. Issei said, which made Doomsday roar in rage before charging at him, which made Issei sigh before snapping his fingers, causing chains to bind Doomsday to the floor until he snapped his fingers once more. Which made multiple portals appear above Doomsday before copies of True Longinus appeared from them. You may have been created to be a weapon of war, but you still feel pain and fear, so now, I'll be showing you the price of those who obtain immortality. Issei said before Doomsday roared in pain as the many spears skewered his arms, legs, body, and even his head. Issei watched the wounds heal on Doomsday's body, which made Doomsday groan in pain, since he could still feel the spears harm his body. Doomsday is immortal, and whenever he dies he returns from the dead with an immunity to what killed him, which is true for normal cases, such as burning holes in his skull, drowning, blowing up, freezing, being thrown into the sun. Other things like that, but against a weapon that was designed and had killed an actual god before then would affect his immortality differently. Doomsday groaned before Issei summoned the power of another sacred gear, the dimensional space, and absorbed Doomsday into it, which shocked Amanda Waller, who saw everything before opening the doors of the arena. Task Force X. This is your target. Don't let him escape. Waller shouted before Issei looked around to see footsteps approaching the arena until Drake spoke to him. Issei. We managed to grab the prisoners and escape. Galadia seemed to be asleep when we took her, but otherwise, she was in the clear. Time to make our exit. Drake said to Issei, which made him smile before Issei then began to become shadows, but not before leaving a final message to Cadmus. I will be taking my leave now, but know that I am not to be underestimated, for I've seen what you are capable of, and now I've defeated one of your greatest weapons, so this is a warning. Send whoever you wish to after me, and I'll send them back to you in body bags. Issei said before vanishing, which made Amanda yell in frustration, slamming a hand on the dashboard until her mind processed his words, making her gasp as she checked the cells of Galadia, the Royal Flush Gang, the Ultimate, Firestorm, and other metahumans they had locked up. This wasn't an invasion. This was a rescue operation, and I fell for the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Amanda said before disengaging Task Force X. Damn it. Amanda yelled while in her home and glaring at the video footage. She saw how this assassin was able to destroy Doomsday, the ultimate weapon to deal with Superman, but it could not even defeat some assassins that have magical powers. What are you? Are you just like the Justice League? Amanda asked herself, knowing about the assassin's warning, until she picked up her phone and tapped a number. Bet the heads together. We have a bigger threat to us than even the Justice League. Amanda said before watching the footage again. With the escapees. Unknown location. Issei left the shadows and sighed in both relief and joy as he walked towards the dunes, where the rescued metahumans looked around in shock, wondering where they were until Issei approached them. Do not worry. For I mean you no harm. Issei said, with his mask helping him speak clearly to them. I actually was hoping to find something that would lead me back to Cadmus, so when I learned of the Royal Flush Gang, as well as a clone of Supergirl, I decided to take a look into Cadmus and see who else has been taken from their lives to become a tool for justice. Firestorm growled at the word since she knew that Cadmus merely wanted her to be an assassin, so they could kill whoever they wanted. Otherwise, they'd kill her. So now what? You'll turn us into the Justice League? Volcano asked before Issei chuckled in response, Ace smirking at the comment. Oh no. For you see, the Justice League and I have a different morals. While I do believe they are doing good, the individual heroes who believe that all villains are redeemable and such don't agree with my views. Issei said before looking at them until he snapped his fingers to bring a full city into view, which was actually innovate clear, due to Brainiac being fascinated by the sacred gear that could create a world he desires, but believed it could also be used as a prison as well. Hence, he ensured that Issei could control it with his imagination. When Drake and Ace escaped with the others, Issei told Drake to plant the Innovate seed into the earth at a location suitable for his goal of creating a league of his own. However, this one is different since unlike the Justice League, which is only comprised of heroes, or Cadmus, which is comprised of humans who think they are superior to metahumans, in Issei's own league, he wants to create one that combines both superpowered beings and humans, who don't have powers as well as any other species. In the moonlit expanse of the desert, a massive structure emerged from the shadows, revealing a hidden city filled with advanced technology and architectural beauty. This was Innovate Clear, a sanctuary and base Issei had envisioned, far from the prying eyes of Cadmus and the Justice League. The rescued metahumans stared in awe at their new surroundings, a stark contrast to the cold clinical cells they had been confined to. Issei, Ace, and Drake stood before them, their figures silhouetted against the city's lights. The city, Innovate Clear, is a safe haven for you all, Issei announced, his voice modulated by his mask. Here, you will not be weapons or prisoners, but individuals with the freedom to choose your paths. Volcana stepped forward, her eyes still wary. What's the catch? Why save us? Issei's eyes softened behind his mask. Because I believe you all deserve a chance to live free, without being manipulated or controlled by one who wishes to abuse your gifts. Which is why I give you all a choice. You can either join me in creating a better world for all or go your own way and continue living the life you choose. I won't force you to join me since I'm neither Cadmus nor the Justice League. They only care about proving their views and opinions are right, but I won't force you to work for me. Only you can decide what you want your fate to be, either a life on the run as a criminal, being a hero in the eyes of the people, being a weapon for someone who wants to play God, or enjoying your new home where you don't have to live in fear and can learn how to control your powers without being forced to be a weapon. The gathered metahumans absorbed Issei's words, the gravity of the choice before them settling in. The offer of freedom and a fresh start contrasted sharply with their experiences of captivity and coercion. Firestorm stepped forward, her fiery aura flickering with uncertainty. And what if we choose to stay? What's your endgame? Issei's gaze was unwavering. To build a world where beings of all kinds, metahumans, humans, anyone can coexist without fear, manipulation, or oppression. A world where everyone's gifts are respected, not exploited. The Royal Flush gang huddled together, discussing in hushed tones. Volcana crossed her arms, deep in thought, while Galadia, recently awakened, watched Issei with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Ace stood beside Issei. Her loyalty was evident. He means what he says. I've seen firsthand what Cadmus and the Justice League can do. Here, you have a chance to be more than just tools or fugitives. One by one, the metahumans began to see the potential of Innovate Clear. They saw a leader who offered not control but choice. Not exploitation, but empowerment. Finally, Volcana stepped forward, determination in her eyes. Alright. I'm in. Let's see if we can really make a difference. Others nodded, one by one, pledging their support. Even those who were hesitant saw the opportunity for a new beginning. Issei smiled beneath his mask, a sense of hope filling him. Welcome to Innovate Clear. Together, we'll forge a path that respects everyone's right to live freely. Issei said that as the first light of dawn began to break, it marked not just a new day, but also a new era for those who had been freed. Innovate Clear stood as a beacon of hope, a place where a diverse alliance could work towards a better future, free from fear and oppression. However, it would be like this for a while, should the Justice League learn of another league like theirs but different. Get excited for this, it is going to be fun. Drake said to the audience as he waved at them before snapping his fingers, ending the scene. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.